Does Sapphire Medallion make a high tide deck better or worse? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing High Tide. So, first of all, why now? Why do we want to make a whole bunch of blue mana and play this Storm deck right now? And the reason is simple. Mind's Desire recently got unbanned, and people are trying to figure out whether or not decks like a High Tide or other Storm decks with Mind's Desire are reasonable. High Tide's general plan has been the same for years. You want to cast a High Tide, maybe untap your lands, use Time Spiral to untap your lands again, and refuel your hand, and you can kind of go and continue this chain. Mind's Desire is an amazing way to get extra copies of Time Spiral or, other ways to produce mana, other ways to get card advantage. And in a High Tide deck, it is not crazy for you to go and just have an absolutely absurd storm count. Our specific build is going to try to take advantage of our Sapphire Medallions, which reduce the cost of our blue cards by playing things like Cloud of Faeries and Snap that allow us to untap some lands. And while normally you'll net a little bit of mana doing something like this, these cards net more mana if Sapphire Medallion further reduces their cost by 1. After we've cast a whole bunch of spells, we're going to hope to either mill our opponent out using a brain freeze or force them to draw their entire library with a card like Blue Sun Zenith, so that's how we're going to plan to win. Let's take a look at the full deck list here. Today's video is sponsored by intotheam.com, and they make absolutely beautiful t-shirts that are also really comfortable. The shirts fit well, and they have a lot of different styles. Obviously, I am a big fan of the Japanese-inspired ones, although I have a lot of the animal ones too. IntoTheAM.com has a Labor Day sale going until September 5th, and you can save between 25 and 95% off a lot of really cool shirts like this one here. Their link is available down in the video description, or you can use promo code ThrabenU at checkout. So Doug asked me to play a deck list that had these Sapphire Medallions, as he used to go and play this way back and extended back in the day. And so this is kind of an upgraded version of what he did there. The core of this deck list comes from the Manland, who I believe either 5-0'd or did well in a preliminary with this. I've made minimal changes, but the original deck list had 15 lands, which I was like, I don't know about that. And 4 copies of Lorien Revealed, so I just flip-flopped those numbers. Lorien Revealed is just absolutely batshit insane, crazy good to hit off a Mind's Desire, and is a cantrip early on. But I was worried that if I was on 15 lands, I would just spend too many of my other cantrips early on in the game trying to find lands when I didn't have this. So a lot of High Tide lists that aren't running Lorien Revealed will be closer to 17 lands, so I think this is a happy medium between these two things. Note that we do have Snap as a main deck way to get Hate Bearers out of the way or other creatures. And if our opponent doesn't really have any creatures, these can just go and bounce our own copies of Cloud of Faeries. I think with that being said, we're pretty much ready to hop into the league here. Couple of final notes. Mystic Sanctuary is a late game way to get back one of your critical business spells or an enabler if you need something like a High Tide. And we do have some relatively cute ways to get rid of stuff out of the sideboard. If you end up wanting to check out the deck list, check out moxfield.com. I've got a link down below. And if you need paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. If you like the t-shirt that I'm wearing, that link is down below as well. Let's battle. Bill from the future here. If you're on a limited time budget and you can only watch 1 or 2 rounds, start with round 4. Enjoy the show. All right, we've got a keep for round 1 here. I think I am going to go ahead and just fetch at sorcery speed, grab an island, and then pass. We are going to have some cost reduction. We're going to have some untappers. We're going to have a High Tide. Ooh. Are we moonin'? No, we are initiative. Chalice on 1. Understood. We're going to have some hoops to jump through. We may or may not be able to jump through said hoops before an initiative creature kills us. That's a time spiral. Interesting. I am going to just play Sapphire Medallion this turn. I think there is an argument that I could just hold up Cloud of Faeries, or even just like play out Cloud of Faeries and then play Sapphire Medallion and give up some combo potential to just have a creature in play for if my opponent plays an initiative creature. But in theory, I need to win this game via via like Mind's Desire nonsense, probably. All right, Merchant Scroll is now more expensive. That's not actually that big of a deal. We're on an island. I am still just going to fetch, I think. I'll grab an island. I can still do this now. Like, making Merchant Scroll more expensive isn't all that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Am I snapping? Without being able to cast High Tide, things are kind of rough. Maybe I just grab Blue Sun and just draw a handful of cards rather than snap a creature out of play. Alice is rough in game 1. In the post sideboard games, like, I have plenty of things that can answer it out, you know, the filter out Echoing Truth, Chain of Vapor sorts of stuff. All right. It's happening. It's going to be a lot of pressure. I'll take a little bit of damage along the way. Just kind of feels like this isn't a matchup that I super want to play. You are literally one card too late, bud. So, let's do this. This is only going to cost me 1. I will cast this. I will untap up to 2 lands. I will Blue Sun, target myself. We'll do a draw 3. Okay. I might be able to do some cute shit next turn. Like, I can Mystic Sanctuary to put Alorian Revealed back into my deck. And then, like, snap Cloud of Faeries. Do a Mind's Desire in there somewhere. Might have to do the Time Spiral first. We'll figure it out. No. We are going to Force of Will, like, literally anything my opponent casts this turn. That's actually really fucking bad for me. Like, I wanted to snap that. That was so much more mana. So it goes. Oh, no, hit too. They hit a Lotus Petal, which they did not cast. So I can get. Man, I could snap both creatures out of play. That Solitude was so fucking bad. Okay. Let's Mystic Sanctuary. Let's put Alorian Revealed back into the deck. Yes. 1, 2. You're going to cast Snap. We're going to target the thing that has a relevant ability for this turn cycle, as I am just dead to trap on board. I will untap 2 lands. I think this has to be a Time Spiral situation rather than a Mind's Desire, unfortunately. I do this with some leftover mana. For 5 cards, or 5 untaps. It's not looking the best. I can snap to bounce that creature out of play. Untap some of these. I can draw a couple of cards. Do I have turnabouts? I don't have turnabouts. There's not a creature in play to untap my lands now. This is a little dicey. I think I can go this low. This is just a draw 2. That's so bad. Fuck you, Chalice. No, this is a draw 3. X is 3 because Sapphire Medallion. All right. Draw. Mind's Desire. I have 3 mana towards that, and I'm deterministically dead to trap. F. Yeah, that'll do. Um, that solitude so that I couldn't just like do a past the turn line was so bad. Like I could have attacked, drawn a land, set up more, and attempted next turn. All right, need answers to Chalice on 1, which is probably the Echoing Truth and the Filter Out. Force of Negation's not crazy. I don't have reps in to know what I should be cutting. It seems like I will not die if I board out 2 copies of Cloud of Faeries. Okay, so this is essentially a 2-land hand that can brainstorm later and can force of will a relevant lock piece. This is kind of whatever. I don't think I am unhappy about this. Do I just ponder looking for a land this turn, and then this is land 3 and a shuffle for the ponder? Yeah, I think I've talked myself into that. Cloud of Faeries with Snap. Junk that. I will probably draw a Cloud of Faeries. This is fine. I don't know, I might just immediately shuffle. I'll let that happen. And I will just force that. Pitching one of the copies of Snap. I think I'm going to shuffle the Cloud of Faeries. Now that I have just gone down a card. Grab an island. Take a fresh draw. That's not what I want to see. Not thrilled about that. Uh-oh. Fuck you, Archon. I can snap it out of play. That's not the end of the world. It's good for them, though. What is a time spiral? Let's go ahead and brainstorm now. This is looking really damn good. The next turn is like High Tide, Cloud of Faeries, Time Spiral. And I snap Archon. Yeah, this is fine. Put back Force. Put a land on top. And I can decide whether or not I need to snap Archon end of turn or not. F. This is very awkward. My opponent. I'm going to snap the Archon out of. My opponent names High Tide. I go into a combo turn. Like, I just don't have a combo turn. Maybe I can't snap Archon. Maybe I just have to let this resolve. That sucks. Yeah, because if my opponent just names High Tide and that costs 3 mana, I can't get to Cloud of Faeries. Yeah, I just wanted my opponent to play a big dumb beater like Caves of Chaos Adventurer this turn, rather than a Hate Bear. Alright. So my snap now costs a bunch of mana. Alright. Let's find a medallion. High Tide. Cast High Tide. Cast High Tide. Cast Cloud of Faeries. 1 floating. Untap 2 lands. 7 mana. Fuck, Archon. Fuck you. Ah! Right. That's why we can't do this. Okay, so I just wait till I can get to 4 mana. Then do an end of turn snap on Archon into a probably pretty easy kill. I cannot say deterministic kill, but probably a pretty easy kill. I'm going to become the Joker. Alright, they've named Snap again. Life is awful. Is 5 putting me to 11? So I can land cycle that to get an island. But yeah, Snap costs 6. I don't have Ancient Doom. If I play Cloud of Faeries to block, I take 5 this turn, lethal next turn. So the block does not matter. Noted. Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I guess I cycle this. Merchant Scroll. 5 mana. 5 mana is not 6 mana for Snap Archon out of play to combo off. I am dead to any one of these 2 creatures hitting. I'm also dead to this if I fetch. I don't think this gets me anywhere. Oh shit, it does. Echoing Truth. Okay. Well, it kind of gets me somewhere, right? It only kind of gets me somewhere. Because my opponent will just replay one of these. So I will Echoing Truth and bounce those out of play. Go to 1. My fetch land is off. Maybe if I draw another Cloud of Fairies? Come on. Come on. Fuck. GG. Alrighty, round 2 here. Hopefully we're not facing down some hate bears. We're gonna get Grief Reanimate Griefed instead. In good news, our hand is relatively resilient as far as the top end goes. We probably lose the Merchant Scroll, which finds us kind of the immediate high tide. But we're not planning on going turbo with this hand anyway. Alright, my call was indeed correct. Let's remove that stop. I don't need that for now. I'm going to get in a fetch now. There is some small chance that my opponent may be playing Stifle in their deck list. Cloud of Fairies as an untapper. I don't know that this is super exciting right now. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. We're instead looking for things like Sapphire Medallion and High Tide and Merchant Scroll to find High Tide. See what my opponent's got going on. It's probably just another shock. Okay. That's fine. Narrator's voice. It was not fine. It was 7. I mean, very much not fine. I think this is a time where we just have to fucking eat it. I don't play an island because I'm going to use this to shuffle afterwards. I don't want to get dazed. No. I will shuffle. There's a Merchant Scroll. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and just island cycle this now. Mystic Sanctuary? I'll just pick up an island. Alright. Eat an Orc, which speeds up my opponent's clock. I can Merchant Scroll for a High Tide next turn. And then I can start thinking about doing some other cool stuff. What am I supposed to be good against? I don't think these blue-black decks with like Grief, Reanimate, Orcish Bowmasters, and Counterspells are going to be a good matchup. I don't think the Stompy stuff is going to be a good matchup. Why do I want to play this deck? I'm not sure that I have an answer for you. Mom! Orcs are fucking... It's not even bullying. It's beyond bullying. It's just rude. You're a card late, but I do think I was supposed to shuffle off my previous cantrip and not take Force of Will. Oh yeah, we're Merchant Scrolling. Gets me the High Tide. And that's the turn. Next turn we can High Tide into 6-drop. However, 6 times 2 is 12, which is the amount of life that I'm at. Time Spiral draws 7 cards. 7 times 2, more than 12. So, Time Spiral has probably become Force of Will fodder, and I might have to do some shady-ass Mind Desire nonsense that I'm very uncomfortable with. This is a Murktide Regent. I am taking 5 damage on board. I am not dead on board. If Murktide Regent resolves, I am dead on board. I don't know that things get better. I think I'm going to try to win on my turn. But that feels so bad. It is a blank. So, Mind's Desire is a sorcery. I can't do Mind's Desire nonsense with a gajillion Orcish Bowmaster triggers on the stack. Accordingly, this is the play that I am making. I hope... Yeah, I need to Force of Will that. I cannot pay for that with Daze. This is actually good for me. Pitch Time Spiral. This is actually good for me if my opponent does not have another counter. Because this has built the Storm count. God damn it. So, I can pay for this. Draw one card with Blue Sun. Have no outs. Be dead. Yeah. Brutal. How am I dealing with these Orcish Bowmasters? I can bring in a couple more bounce spells, I guess. Filter out his non-creature, right? Yeah. This is a Pax and Negation matchup where just like on the turn that I'm comboing off, I just need extra protection. My Cloud of Faeries just aren't safe as a combo resource versus Orcish Bowmasters, especially like if I draw any cards on my own turn. So like that gets me 2 of these. Snap still has reasonable targets on the other side of the battlefield. I can do like 2 Packs or 2 Flusters. I think I'm going to do Pact because getting to the 6 mana to do one of these things is probably tricky when we first get started. Sure. This is not a turbo hand. I don't know how quick we can actually goldfish, but it does not feel like the answer is quickly. I want a Mind's Desire. I would be willing to draw 2 of these. Mind's Desire is going to go on top. All right. Sure. Opponent's at 16. I'm winning. That's how that works, right? I've lost the High Tide, which is expected. I think that's fine. I think we plan on getting another one. I don't think that is the moment for a Force of Will. Neither is this. Yeah, I don't really like settling in for a long game versus a deck with like Archetype Regents and Death Shadows that can just very quickly end the game. Do I have to force this one? It's not big now, but it will get bigger. I think I say no. I think I have to play towards actually protecting some sort of kill. It's in play. I think my opponent has a counterspell. They thought about that for a while. Note that my next fetch land can become a copy of High Tide. That's annoying. I don't know if I win, if I lose this Mind's Desire. I still need some other stuff to make this Mind's Desire work. It's just brutal if my opponent does have a counterspell here, counters this, and then I am literally hellbent. Yep. And it did indeed happen. So now I am on 4 points of damage per turn pressure. And my opponent still has cards left with, you know, that could be Orcish Bowmasters, could be a counterspell. So that represents either a High Tide or a Mind's Desire back. Shame I don't have a Lorien revealed in my graveyard. It would be the perfect time for it. I'm on 9. Do I fetch it here? I'm going to say no. Okay, that is a Mind's Desire. So at the end of my opponent's turn, I will fetch for High Tide, put High Tide on top, and have an extremely low percentage chance of being able to do cool shit. Mystic Sanctuary. High Tide on top. Again, I am assuming that my opponent has, you know, literal nothing here. I am dead next turn, so I just absolutely have to go for it here. Opponent's got 2 cards, so I'm not expecting this to work. Even if my spells do resolve, it's just awful still. Yep, and I'm dead on board to the Death Shadow. Yeah, this feels awful. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. Okay, we have High Tide, we have an Untapper, we have a source of cost reduction. This is fine if I hit another land drop, but we're just not going to be faster than whatever Storm Deck Tony is playing in all likelihood. Again, I'm just not sure what sort of matchups we actually want playing a deck that looks like this. So let's get this second land. And this third land. Absolutely. Alright, good stuff. I will play Sapphire Medallion on turn 2. And then hopefully do some cool shit on turn 3. Alright. Like a Burgy Storm deck over there. There's an island. Sapphire Medallion. And it's good. I might not be able to just immediately go off. Oh, it is the One Ring. Protection from everything means that I can't actually go off on my turn. That's something that I wasn't super thinking about. Noted. I will brainstorm. This goes off absolutely fucking crazy next turn. Put back a... So, if I have 4 lands, a lot of Faeries cost 1 mana. I am thinking about Merchant Scroll for Force of Will. I'm going to put back a High Tide and a land. Do this. Oh fuck, that's 1 mana right now. I will Merchant Scroll for a Force of Will and pass the turn. That way I just have protection for whatever happens over there. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. Like, I don't have colors nailed down yet, and my opponent's deck, I guess, could be colorless. How badly do you need that One Ring? Versus, is this bait? I think if you can stop your opponent from drawing 3 cards, you just stop them. Fetch the Blue Sun. It is a Metamorph. That gives protection from everything for another turn, unfortunately. I can't mill my opponent out or make them draw their library. Okay. They have kept this ring. Alright, they have blue mana. Yeah, like I have the resources to go off. I just can't win through the One Ring. Protection from everything, right? Because my win conditions are Brain Freeze that targets, Blue Sun that targets. Yeah, I cannot win through a One Ring trigger. Got it. Sure. Okay. Yep. So now this is a draw 4. Note that the Ancient Tombs are getting pretty close to being shut off. But if this is just like a Phyrexian Metamorph One Ring deck, like, not indefinitely, but my opponent can definitely keep doing nonsense and get more triggers. Sure. Note, they are dead to the One Ring now. If my opponent plays an untapper, I might need to think about cycling Cloud of Fairies to hit a Force of Will effect to counter that untapper. Yeah. I think this is a cycle situation. Hold on. Do I High Tide here? Like, is this a critical enough moment that I High Tide so that if I draw another Cloud of Fairies, I can cycle a second time? I don't think so. I think that leaves me just too dead to them just like, okay. Doing anything else reasonable? Alright. This is now a draw 6. I'm gonna F6. Alright. For a minute there, I thought Tony was gonna be dead. 4 mana. Can't win again. Yeah, this is going to be a frustrating league. Okay, I have a Force of Will that I can use to emergency stop something. Takes a card. I will unfortunately have to pitch cast the Force of Will. Countering that doesn't really do me anything. Yep. Alright. So, the One Ring is now lethal. I just need to stop another One Ring from hitting play. Yep. I counter that. We will pay 2 mana, exile a Mind's Desire to take that out. Imagine my opponent has more than just that. At this point, I can't cast another card through Defense Grid, so I'm F6'd. I'm going to skip ahead. My opponents played a couple more spells, including another copy of the One Ring. I didn't point this out before, but they did discard a coveted jewel, so that's one of the things going on with their deck list. And now the reason that they are in blue makes sense. This is ultimately going to end in me being very dead. Let's figure out how. A second Mind's Desire happens and puts a whole bunch of crazy shit into the exile zone, including a Thassa's Oracle. So that is my opponent's ultimate win condition. Good to know. I think my opponent is both faster than me and has more interaction than me. Like, I just can't. I cannot win through the One Ring protection from everything. So I think the plan has to be counter it. But that plan sucks versus defense grid. So yeah, that's a thing. I could do something like filter out as a tutor target to just kind of clear crap out. That's not crazy. My opponent's not giving me targets for Snap, so if I want to use Snap to untap my stuff, I need to keep Cloud of Faeries, which is one of the cards that I'm traditionally going to for cuts. So I guess that leaves me kind of confused what I'm supposed to do in sideboarding, because I don't know what to get rid of. Maybe I just keep the Cloud of Faeries and get rid of the Snaps. Seems like what I'm doing just falls apart so easily. This has too many good things to throw back, but I'm just not going to interact with my opponent unless I ponder into a force. Like Force of Will plus land in this pile would be pretty hot. Okay. No shuffle. So I'm going to play a turn 2 Sapphire Medallion into a turn 3 attempt to go off. That's about as fast as I can possibly go with this deck. Grim Monolith. Into a defense grid. Sure. You have another Grim Monolith. Understood. Oh. Well, that's a hell of a fucking hand. Wow. That is turn 1, the One Ring, and defense grid. Cool. I don't want the land that's on top of my deck right now. So I will go ahead and fetch, just grab an island, play a Sapphire Medallion, and hope my opponent can't kill me this turn. I am shields down if they can. I have 5 cards in hand after the One Ring activation. We'll take key represents mana, 4 cards, not both. Or actually, I can't go off on turn 3, can I? I don't have an untapper. 1 mana short, because High Tide is 4 mana with 2 lands, which is 1 short of the Time Spiral stuff. Yeah. So I will be 1 short of doing cool things. Echo of Eons. High Tide? High Tide, land taps for 3. No, still need an untapper. God, how does this deck function without Turnabout? Oh dear donor, I know you wanted to see Sapphire Medallion for the sake of nostalgia. I think we're seeing why Sapphire Medallion doesn't see play anymore. Like, it's functioning so much worse than something like a Candelabra, Octanos, or a Turnabout. Alright, my opponent played another defense grid and passed the turn. So, I'm good next turn, right? Yeah. High Tide, Time Spiral. However, I'm not good. I have to Force of Will. I guess I can't Force of Will, actually. Okay. This Force of Will costs 6, even after Sapphire Medallion cost reduction. I still just don't get to that. Like, I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just gonna F6 and assume that I'm dead. Yeah, there's Paradox Engine. I'm gonna skip to the end of this turn. It's damn near deterministic that I'm dead. And another minute or 2 later, Thassa's Oracle hits the stack, and we are dead. Okay, I don't know how much of a fan I am of this. If I ponder and get a land, I play Sapphire Medallion. Then I play Sapphire Medallion. And then on turn 4, I maybe cast a Mind's Desire, maybe? I don't think I'm going to keep this one. Oh, this is also just like not great. All right, let's keep it and pitch a Force of Will. I'm locked into finding lands with this Ponder, and I'm still going to need some help from there. Like, I'm going to need like both lands and a High Tide. Okay. These will do. No shuffle. Pass the turn. Okay. If we lose to Cloudpost, if we can't put up a win against Cloudpost, against a deck that is just incredibly slow, meant to go over the top of other slow fair decks, we can't beat anything. Sure. Cool. Cool. And there's just no fucking game one out to that, right? Nope. All right. Here we go. This is the thing that I can do to win the game. Attack with Cloud of Faeries. There's no way that we win. Like, any reasonable card from my opponent outraces Cloud of Faeries. Yeah. I'm going to concede here. Yep. So I will play Chain of Vapor, and we can think about... We're going to be thinking about some amount of this sort of stuff. Like, are the Sapphire Medallions just trash? Like, do I just board those out and board in 4 additional answers to, like, Trinispheres? And that's what I'm doing. Yes. Maybe a filter out. These miss stuff. I think I'm going to board in 3 bounce spells, 1 additional Force of Negation, and call it good. Nope. I have no payoff here. Like, if I keep this hand and pitch the Force of Will so that I have the resources to go off if my opponent doesn't interact with me. I think this is what is required to build up the, like, requisite mana / storm count to attempt to make a 6 mana card work. But I just kind of feel like I'm soft to everything. I feel like this deck mulligans extremely poorly. Okay. That's fine. A Brainstorm. There are things that I could want to play this turn. I will go ahead and cast that. That's a little bit too much mana there. Let's go ahead and ponder. Okay. This is an attempt at going off next turn. It is 3 mana. Grim Monolith. Yeah, I realized after I stacked my card that I should have left that on top. Although I guess if they take either a Mind's Desire or a High Tide, it's bad for me either way. Right. Yeah, this in fact might be optimal because I have more 6-drops than I do High Tides, so this gives them something else that they could want to take instead of the High Tide. Yeah, I think I've talked myself around that. That is the Snap. I don't want the Brain Freeze on top of my deck, so I will fetch. All right, I cast a High Tide. I have 4 mana. I use 2 of it to play Cloud of Faeries. I can do a very small Mind's Desire this turn. Is that fine? Or do I wait 1 turn? I think I wait 1 turn and just Island Cycle this turn. I end up with more mana and the possibility of a much stronger turn. I just think 3 random cards off the top is not guaranteed enough. I'll just get Trinisphered for making that decision, though. Sure. Yep. That resolves. Lost the High Tide. I'm on a swift clock, too. At 14. Can Island Cycle this to guaranteed hit my next land drop? And unfortunately, the cards from Thought-Knot Seer are not in my graveyard, so I can't just get them back with Mystic Sanctuary. I think accordingly, I just take a regular island rather than Mystic Sanctuary. Okay. Like I can I can fetch with Mystic Sanctuary and put a card on top of my library. I guess I'll do it. I am dead on board. I do have some things like Echoing Truth in my deck that can kind of do cute things. Sure. Go to 5. Mystic Sanctuary. Do it on Ponder. Ponder looks at 4 cards. We're looking for a High Tide. That's a High Tide. Okay. No shuffle. Land drop. High Tide. Play Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 islands. This is a small Mind's Desire. See if it's good enough. Brainstorm. I'm going to cast that here. We'll put back the 2 lands. Now I get a Mind's Desire shuffle here. Merchant Scroll. It's a Merchant Scroll. It's a Lorien Revealed. Okay, so Lorien Revealed. Draw 3. 2 mana. Snap Cloud of Faeries to my hand. Untap 2 lands. Have 4 mana to work with, plus some Merchant Scrolls. These are free. I get Echoing Truth. For 2 mana, I can bounce both Thought-Knot Seers. How am I drawing cards? That's what I need to do. There's Blue Sun. Yeah, let's see if we can win this. Get another High Tide. Cast High Tide. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Cast free Merchant Scroll. Get Blue Sun. Chain of Vapor. Target Cloud of Faeries. I will sacrifice a land and copy it, targeting a Thought-Knot Seer. That lets me draw a card. It's a Lorien Revealed. So, Cloud of Faeries. Cast it. Untap 2 lands. This is 5 mana. Draw 3 cards. That is a Ponder. These are tapping for 3. Let's Ponder. Cloud of Faeries is mana. It's kind of whatever. Let's try to hit better than that. Let's cast a Cloud of Faeries. Untaps 2 islands. I can do 6 Blue Sun, target myself. X is 3. That still lets me play an untapper at 2 mana. I can do it at 4. I'm going to do this targeting myself. I think I have to leave 2 mana in my pool for Cloud of Faeries and Snap. I'm going to draw 4. Whiff. That's upsetting. If I had done it for like X is 2. Alright. So I Merchant Scroll for another High Tide to try again next turn. I will discard a Force of Negation. Alright. So, we managed a storm count of 17 and not getting a kill. There might have been a deterministic line in there. I didn't find it because this is my first time attempting it in round 4. Maybe getting the Blue Sun was bad. Alright. Like, Blue Sun ended up being, what, a draw 4? That gets a no from me. Alright. Force of Will. Pitch Force of Will. Alright. So, make a land drop. Fetch. Island. High Tide. This is 8. I could Echoing Truth. Thought-Knot Seer first. Get it out of my opponent's hand, and I draw a card. Okay. Bounce that. I draw a card. It's a Ponder. I don't get to cast that. I Time Spiral. Untap 5. I'm going to get to Time Spiral again. Start on a Brainstorm. Put back some lands that I can't play. Cast a High Tide. These are tapping for 3. Cast a Merchant Scroll. We'll just build some Storm here. Get Snap. Snap Cloud of Faeries. Untap my lands. Play Cloud of Faeries. Untap these. Cast a Ponder, a Blue Sun. Blue Sun is fine. Not shuffle my library. Since these tap for 3, as long as I leave a couple of these untapped, they should just be good. Let's just treat this as a draw 5. Okay. Snap the Faeries. Untap some lands. Play the Faeries. Untap some lands. Echoing Truth, the Faeries. Play the Faeries. Untap some islands. Do a whole bunch of stuff to cast a Time Spiral. I get to untap all my stuff. We're still not in deterministic kill mode. We're probably winning. Tap 2 lands. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Do that. Draw 3 cards. With Lorien Reveal. Tap 2 thingies. Snap Cloud of Faeries. Untap the lands. Let's Merchant Scroll for... I'm going to have to Blue Sun my opponent out, aren't I? Do another Merchant Scroll. Get a Snap. Get a High Tide? Get a High Tide. I could actually do some math here, but I think I'm just okay. Mind's Desire will get the win. Just without thinking about it, it will. So I'm going to cast this. I'm going to untap some stuff, and I'm going to say that a Mind's Desire for 23 is probably reasonable. All right. I have done the thing. I have put triggers on the stack. Okay. At this point, we're just going to make the appropriate amount of mana and kill my opponent. So I will High Tide. Then we'll cast some copies of Cloud of Faeries. Untap my lands. We'll do that again. How much mana can I make at this point? 55. That'll do. We will make my opponent draw 50 cards and lose the game. We won, but at what cost? This is not an easy deck to physically win the game with. My Mind's Desire, like my Mind's Desire there won me the game, but I don't know how deterministic that card really is going to be. So this has Force of Will for my opponent's first relative thing, pitching Force of Negation. It has a Merchant Scroll for a High Tide, and a way to untap. This is fine. My opponent's on 5. And I imagine they won't have a turn 1 play. Ah, nice. I have a turn 1 play now. Super happy about that. Force of Will pitching Force of Negation is still, like, very much my plan. Or whatever, like, Thought-Knot Seer type card ends up coming down first. I do not counter that. You may have that. We'll cycle Lorien Revealed. Excuse me. That is a snap. We will Merchant Scroll for a High Tide. Yeah, like there's no creature in play as of right now, so my untappers don't actually do anything, which is really inconvenient. I don't think I let that resolve to put a creature into play. I think I just force that. But I think I force it pitching 1 snap so that I can keep the Force of Negation in case this is just about to be a Trinisphere. I don't think it is, but I think I'm in a situation where I can wait a turn. Next turn, I can Time Spiral, and I can hardcast a Force of Negation this turn as a bridge card. I just really hope my opponent plays a non-creature spell this turn that I can go after. Another Thought-Knot Seer is pretty rough. Yeah, I can go after that. But, man, like just again, this is like not a card that I want to be dealing with, because I literally cannot combo off through it. Okay. So you're telling me there's a chance. Bam. Cast High Tide. Fetch. Grab Island. Time Spiral. Untap my 4 lands. I think I'm going to just start on a Brainstorm here. Okay, there's another Time Spiral. That is great. So let's just put back like land. land. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 of these. I am just going to cycle to shuffle here so that I can just brainstorm again. Mind's Desire is very good. I'm actually going to put another Mind's Desire into the deck so that I can hit it later with Mind's Desire. All right. 1, 2. 2. Cloud of Faeries. Yeah. Untap 2 lands. We will Mind's Desire. That's going to be real good. Force of Will in Exile is some nice protection for if things get a little bit weird. High Tide. Lorien revealed. There be more Mind's Desire. Cast Ponder. Snap is cool. Echoing Truth is cool. Yeah, I like these cards. No shuffle. Snap Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. At this point, casting another Mind's Desire is probably reasonable. There's a Brain Freeze. I guess I should have boarded that out since my opponent is playing Eldrazi. Alright. Cast High Tide. Cast High Tide. Cast Merchant Scroll. Get Snap. Cast Snap on a Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Tap for Manyas. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Tap 2 lands. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Cast Merchant Scroll. Get Blue Sun. Cast Ponder. Sure. Grab Chain of Vapor. No shuffle. Tap 2 of these. Cast Chain of Vapor. Target of Faeries. No need to sacrifice a land. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. At this point, am I at lethal levels of mana? Yes. Cast Blue Sun, targeting my opponent. Oh, that's technically only for 48, but I've already clicked through it. Alright, so they have everything in their hand. Good enough. I could technically, like, loop through the deck again, but they can just die to their draw step. I'm good with that. That's a match win, folks. And that means we're going back in for round 5. Alright, I am going to need a 6-mana business spell, but this hand has the rest of what I need to be functional. Like, it has 3 lands, it has a Sapphire Medallion, and a couple of ways to untap. Like, this is a great start. Unfortunately, my opponent's mulliganing to 5, which probably means fast combo, and my deck's not fast. So let's see where it goes. Basic Island? Okay. So we are playing against a show and tell deck. They are going to Goldfish faster than I am. If we're gonna steal a win, we're going to steal it because my opponent just mulliganed to 5. Okay. Oh, so you're telling me there's a chance. Understood. My opponent's build will be faster than mine on average with Candle. I think I'm actually going to brainstorm here. Well, these are some cards. These are some cards. Yeah, I'm just happy with these. Okay. Put back, put back. Do this. Play a Sapphire Medallion. And next turn, I think I do hot girl shit. Right? So play land drop. Cast High Tide. Tap land for 2 mana. Use 1 of it to play Cloud of Faeries. Untapping those. That's 5 mana, 6, 7 mana. Snap times. Yeah. Okay. Next turn I do cool things. That's fine. And if I put up a 2-3 finish in this league after just getting punched in the face for the first 3 rounds, I would be so happy. That was a bottom off that preordain. Now, if I think my opponent doesn't have it, I can wait a turn, and it becomes much safer for me to go off. But I think I'm supposed to try to go off here. High Tide. Fairy Friend. And costs 1 mana because of Sapphire Medallion. Untap these lands. I guess I don't technically have to tap that land yet. This costs 1. Or no, I want to tap the lands. So snap that back. That is the moment they are choosing to fight, which seems weird to me because I still just have 6 for a Time Spiral. A Time Spiral with 1 floating at that. 1, 2, 3 untaps. Okay. We're going to have Mind's Desire. So tap 2 lands. Snap Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Tap 2 lands. Cast Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Tap 2 lands. Snap Cloud of Faeries. Untap 2 lands. Tap 2 lands. Cast Cloud of Faeries. I feel like this deck has started trying to do things, and honestly, I appreciate what it is doing here. Untap 2 lands. Cast a Sapphire Medallion. Storm count of 10. I guess at this point I could hard cast a Force of Will if I needed to. So I guess I will Brainstorm. Yeah. Yeah, these are fine. They'll put back a land and a Force of Will. I guess Brainstorming again is relatively free. It just is going to end up being more cards for Mind's Desire. All right. All right. Faith in humanity restored. My opponent conceded upon seeing the Mind's Desire flipped. Fair, 100%. That is going to be the case. So we have a good old-fashioned High Tide Mirror. So counterspells are good. I don't know that I want to Pact. We're going to go 4 Sapphire Medallions out. That's going to get me 2 Flusters and 2 Force of Negations. And then I'll probably treat 1 Lorien Revealed as expendable to do another Force of Negation. I don't think I want Pact because I am going to need to counter spell sometimes on my turn, sometimes on my opponent's turn. Force of Negation, in some instances, could be hard castable on my own turn. This has a Merchant Scroll for a High Tide and a Piece of Protection. Probably pitching my Brain Freeze. My opponent took 1 mulligan. We are fine pondering. Lands? 2 lands? That's fine. Not the sexiest thing in the world, but like I am going to need them. The lands help make like the ponders and such better as well. So do I want to Merchant Scroll this turn or just ponder and fetch? I think I'm fine just casting Merchant Scroll this turn and working towards High Tide. Like if this gets countered, it's not the end of the world. All right. So that's a candle. That's fine. Don't think that's what I am supposed to fight over. Will be a ponder turn. Force of Negation? Sure. No shuffle. Play a fetch land and pass. Next turn I technically could work towards a Mind's Desire line, but I don't know that I'm really excited about that. That's fine. Maybe a matchup where the first person who tries to go off just gets absolutely wrecked. Go ahead and fetch end of turn. Just clear. That is a Brainstorm. I am fine doing that. Hoo hoo hoo. Those are good cards. I probably put back my Brain Freeze into the deck. Throw back 1 regular land. With that regular land on top, I can consider drawing it. I would love it if my opponent attempted to go off on their turn, and I just, like, stuff that in some capacity, and then the way is clear for me to go off on my own turn. I don't really know if that's going to happen. No secondary fetch. we're just making land drops and having a good time. So, how am I feeling? Not bad. Like, I think it's okay. Note that this is symmetrical, though. So it can get a little weird. I will untap 2 islands. I will tap 2 islands. I will cast a Cloud of Faeries. I will untap 2 islands. I will go up to 6 and cast a small Mind's Desire. It is a Flusterstorm. So there's 1 copy on 3 of those things of Mind's Desire. I could just let the first one get countered and then pay for the others without, like, using my Flusterstorm. I think that's fine. That one does nothing. Now I'll just pay for these remaining ones. Huh. I think did my opponent Flusterstorm wrong? Another Mind's Desire. Hell yeah. Merchant Scroll. Lorien Revealed. Those are some sick rips. So, I will draw some cards. Nice. I will Merchant Scroll. You're going to find me a Snap. I will cast a Snap, target Cloud of Faeries. Alright, my opponent is fetching. Untapping their lands. Force of Will on Snap. My Force of Negation moment. I'm going to Force of Will pitching Force of Negation. I basically never want to use the Flusterstorm until I'm about to lose the game. Oh my god. I literally don't believe it after how poorly the first couple of rounds went, but we ended up with a 2-3. Like, we actually did the thing. Ooh. So, first of all, Sapphire Medallion, I am sorry, but you are fired. You did not do what I needed you to do in most of my rounds today. Let's take a quick look at the deck list here. I definitely felt that I wanted Turnabout much more than I wanted something like Sapphire Medallion in a lot of my rounds. However, this whole like Cloud of Faeries Snap, Cloud of Faeries mana and storm generation thing is crazy with Mind's Desire when it actually works. But again, when we're talking about the matchup lottery here, I beat Cloudpost, which is an incredibly slow deck on average, and I beat the High Tide Mirror. Although I honestly think my opponent was probably favored over me in terms of like which of our builds was better for the mirror. So Doug, I know you wanted to see some nice Sapphire Medallion action, but I think if you want to see medallions seeing play in Legacy, like the Ruby Storm deck is the answer for that. The Ruby Storm deck has medallions, which make some of the like Galvanic, Relay, and Bergy and Hornfell lines really impressive, and it still has that mix of speed and power. Whereas I feel like this deck list, without any sort of like artifact acceleration or anything like that, doesn't quite have the speed where it just like super takes advantage of Sapphire Medallion well. Had we played something against something that had like Thorn of Amethyst or Sphere of Resistance or something, the Sapphire Medallions would have negated those things. But I really didn't like that in game 1. We were just so soft to artifact-based disruption. You know, the Chalice of the Voids, the Trinispheres, and things of that nature. And, you know, had we come up against a Blood Moon deck, you know, a Moon Stompy deck list, we have a good amount of islands, but seeing as every single one of our lands really needs to be an island to take full advantage of High Tide, that might have been a problem too. So maybe the main deck needs like one card that you can just Merchant Scroll for so that you have outs to artifact-based disruption. Or maybe just accept that you're not going to beat it in game one or the other. Mind's Desire is a powerful magic card. And moving forward, I think the big question people are going to have is like, is there a Mind's Desire deck that's worth playing? And my good friend Bryant Cook has done a lot of testing with Mind's Desire decks and combo decks, more generally speaking. And one of the things that I'm watching him absolutely lose his mind about right now is the fact that people are overcompensating for Mind's Desire deck lists and creative technique deck lists by playing things like Mindbreak Traps in their sideboards, which maybe doesn't make the most sense when a massive, massive, massive portion of the competitive metagame is either blue black shadow or blue black scam if you want to differentiate those two deck lists, and then it's Grixis Delver behind that as like the top three-ish decks in the format, with a couple other things like Moon Stompy and lands being on the outside of that as well. But if people are going to overestimate how good Mind's Desire and Creative Technique decks are, and you're really likely to get paired against these like blue-black decks that have a swift clock and counterspells and discard, I don't know that I want to be on a deck list like this one. So I hope that all gives you some wonderful things to think about. If you end up needing any cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. And folks, I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!